Trump is melting down faster than his makeup. The breakdown starts now. We are riding high off of the DNC. I'm Maya May, and I'm here with Jeff Timmer. Jeff, how you doing?
Great. I am sitting in tonight for Rick Wilson, who is traveling and, as of this morning, new grandfather, first-time grandfather. So congratulations to Rick Wilson and Andrew Wilson and Becky and the entire family.
Yes, congratulations, y'all. So he's got like a double high coming off the DNC and now a grandfather. Congratulations to him. But also congratulations to all of us for having a flawless week of celebrating democracy. Jeff, was this your first Democratic convention?
First time I've been to a Democratic convention. I've been to several Republican conventions, and the vibe has been the word that everyone likes to use. The vibe around Harris and Tim Walz is palpable. It was something to behold. It was unlike anything I've experienced in more than 3 decades in politics. The excitement, the enthusiasm, the psychological mindset that instead of, gosh, I hope we win, which was the mindset in July, in August, it was, oh my gosh, we're going to win this thing. We got a lot of work to do, but we're going to win this thing. And it makes a big difference that the pro-democracy coalition came out of that convention last week, loaded, ready for the last now 66 days. And it's a sprint to election day that I think there are more of us than there are of them. And I think we're ready to show that.
Yeah, they say it's a marathon, not a sprint, but this is a sprint. Sometimes it is a sprint. And I think it goes a lot to say about the organizers because they did want to make it a big party. And I think some people were criticizing that, but at the same time, it's that energy that people needed to kind of push back against all of the negativity that we've seen coming from the Trump campaign. And we know it's effective because during the middle of the DNC, Trump had the biggest meltdown of all meltdowns on Fox News, where we have a clip. We should probably just roll it.
Let's bring your husband with us also, right? And we'll bring some of the other people that are with you, because I like the people that are with you. And we'll go to Caracas. No, she's not having success. I'm having success. I'm doing all electric cars. All electric cars are going to be made in China. And you're not going to have, you literally will not have Michigan. The auto workers are voting for me because I have nothing to do with Project 25. They throw it out 4 to 5 times. No, it's only in your eyes that they have that, Martha. We're doing very well. 70% of our people are living in poverty. Can't go to the American dream and buy a house because of child trafficking, incompetence, and her bad border policies. She is a horrible, look, other than that, it was a nice-looking room.
Yeah, using Fox News as therapy is a hell of a strategy.
Yeah, well, let's look at what happened. I mean, Trump was sitting home at one of his kind of gauche seaside bordellos in Florida, and kind of rage watching and rage truthing during Harris's last night of the convention, her, I think, extraordinary one for the ages acceptance speeches. And then right afterward, he calls in like a drunk uncle to Fox until they shut him down. I mean, they effectively just cut away from him. He wasn't done with his rant.
The looks on their faces just the entire time was like, we're like, how do we cut this man off? Let's
get him the nuclear codes or get him off our phone. I mean, that's the choice that Americans are looking at here. And it's just, we have a completely insane, impulsive lunatic who's running for president, and in some polls is still holding his own. So it shows how askew we've gotten in our politics and our culture. But my gosh, Trump is unable to find his footing since Kamala Harris has become the Democratic nominee. His campaign, himself personally, the messaging from the Republicans, their candidates up and down the ticket, they've all been floundering around these last weeks trying to figure out how to respond to the Democrats.
Yeah, and asking, is she talking about me? Now, we called this a couple of weeks ago that Donald Trump is a little obsessed with Kamala Harris, and it's so absolutely abundantly clear in some of these truths. And it's like you want to laugh. I am laughing, but at the same time, how horrifying that this is the best that the GOP has to offer. And as he tries to reel it in, he went with a sort of photo opportunity in a place where it backfired almost immediately.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a clip of what happened this week at Arlington Cemetery, but it really is indicative of how Trump will do anything and ruin anything and make everything about him. Here we have a ceremony honoring the fallen soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan. And there are rules, there are regulations, there is a code of conduct that takes place around this that prevents political activity, political candidates from using this as a political stunt. There's not supposed to be the photographs and the replaying of this. If Trump was really there to support the families, he would have done it quietly like candidates and presidents have before him. But this was all about Trump. He made it about him. I mean, what kind of ghoul gives the thumbs up and a big grin standing over a grave? I mean, that says it all right there.
Yeah, and we have to remember, and I know everybody watching knows this, that he's still a draft dodger who disrespects our veterans at every single turn. We ran an ad a while back, several years ago, about this. Let's refresh us with this.
Losers. Suckers. Dopes. Babies. That's how Donald Trump describes our men and women in uniform. Even Fox News confirms he said it. An American president would know our troops are defined by words like courage, honor, integrity, strength, patriotism, valor, and for so many, sacrifice. He's a draft dodger in chief who despises the men and women he supposedly leads. He insults their deaths and injuries with his contempt. He looks down on them for serving this nation, mocking them because there's no money in it. Millions of Americans have served and sacrificed. Millions more have sent a family member off to war. Only Donald Trump mocks their deaths because Donald Trump is simply un-American.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Un-American, and nothing has changed. Not a assassination attempt where he saw God. Still the same man.
Yeah, well, what's even worse is there's more to the story. It wasn't just that he showed up and spoiled this with his kind of a sideshow aspect, turning this and politicizing a solemn moment. There was actually a physical altercation between members of the Trump campaign and those staffers at the Arlington National Cemetery representing the War Department who are there to do their job, trying to prevent him from making a spectacle and a circus of this event. And it really is awful. And I think we don't know the full extent. We haven't seen the footage that apparently exists, but it's not going to make the Trump campaign look good. In fact, it may make them look even worse than they have to date. state with their disdain and derision of our veterans and those who have committed themselves to protecting this country. I think as this story continues to unfold, something is going to come to light here that is not talked about as much as it should be, and that's the fact that Donald Trump is at risk of losing the veterans vote, the first Republican candidate in decades and generations to lose the veterans vote. He likes to wrap himself in the flag, likes to wrap himself in uniform, use the members of the military in ceremonies at Arlington National Cemetery as political props. But the people who actually put themselves on the line, have sacrificed their lives, the lives of members of their family to protecting this country. They know the score, and they are very, very unhappy with Donald Trump.
Yeah, and as much as JD Vance wants to downplay what happened in an effort to somehow smooth things over, no. And we actually have a clip of that, of him talking about the altercation that they claim didn't happen.
Well, I think, first of all, the altercation at Arlington Cemetery is the media creating a story where I really don't think that there is one. There is verifiable evidence. There is verifiable evidence that the campaign was allowed to have a photographer there. There's verifiable, they were invited to have a photographer there. There's verifiable evidence that the families of these poor people who had their loved ones die 3 years ago at Abbey Road, Abbey Gate, those 13 Americans, a lot of them were there with the president. They invited him to be there and to support them.
JD Vance every time he opens his mouth, it just further confirms that he was an excellent choice as VP, because literally he makes it so easy to hate him, truly.
Yeah, the day JD Vance was selected by Trump before the Republican convention back in July, I said that history would show that he's the worst candidate ever selected for the Veep spot on any party, worse even than Sarah Palin. He's proven that every single day. I can't imagine there's going to be too many more days where the Trump campaign sends him out to run into this kind of public relations buzzsaw in these unforced errors that he has done repeatedly, whether it's continually talking about childless cat ladies, or how different people in different professions, now lately teachers without children, have no business. All he does is offend people. I mean, at some point, they're just going to send him out to put up Trump signs around the country where he can do no harm, because if he's in front of a microphone, he's screwing up the campaign.
Can they do that? Can they demote him? Can he be demoted to just putting up signs? Because that would be funny. I would love to see that.
Well, I've been involved with campaigns where the candidate themselves was such a deterrence, like at the knocking on doors of voters, that it was best to keep them off the doors. And so we encouraged them to go do things that kept them away from the public eye, like put up signs. And it's not going to be long before Chris LaCivita and Corey Lewandowski meet up with JD Vance and stuff him in a trunk somewhere, or lock him in a cage in a basement where he can do no harm.
It's very much like Parasite, or that one cartoon. It's like nobody talks about Bruno, and that's going to be JD Vance. He's just going to be like in the attic. I love it. We actually have audio of him in case you missed out on JD dissing yet another group of people. We actually do have that, so why don't we take a listen?
And I think our conservative idea is that parents and families should determine what children learn, what values they are brought up with. You know, so many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And that really disorients me, and it really disturbs me. Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the most powerful teachers union in the country, she doesn't have a single child. If she wants to brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone.
Okay, first of all, she is a mom. She's a stepmom, I believe. But who says these kind of things? Like, the obsession that JD Vance has, like, how does he spend any time actually parenting his own children? Because it feels like he uses his time worrying about what everybody else is doing with their life. It's like, it's almost pathological at this point. Like, we have to unpack this. Like, we need one of those experts who can kind of like figure out what's going on with JD Vance. He's so obsessed with this.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there's certainly a lot of criticism coming JD Vance's way, and it's very deserved. But what Donald Trump has done to women is worse. I mean, Donald Trump has been found by a court to have sexually assaulted at least one woman. Uh, what Donald Trump is the bigger problem here. JD Vance is just emblematic of a Republican Party that is accepting of Trump's boorish, vile, deviant, criminal behavior toward women, very misogynistic, very dismissive. And I think it just shows the fact that JD Vance goes out there day after day and says these things, and Republicans don't seem to have a problem with it. Just the majority of Americans do, because it's wrong, but it's indicative of the mindset of Donald Trump and the rest of the Republicans. JD Vance is not an outlier. He's mainstream in that party.
But at this point, is it just that there's no strategy behind it? Because I watch and I'm going, like, they can't possibly think they're appealing to moderates and independents in swing states with this. So is this just like a last ditch Hail Mary effort where they're like, we're just going to put it all out there and see where it lands? Or is it more nefarious than that? They're not worried about the votes because on the back end, there's enough suppression efforts going on that it doesn't matter which way the vote goes.
I think there's a whole lot of yes to all of those questions. The fact that there is no strategy behind the Trump campaign. At some point in time, the campaign professionals like Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles pretended to have a strategy. But when you have Donald Trump as your candidate, you have no strategy. The strategy becomes responding and trying to, walk around with a pooper scooper to the latest thing, the latest bomb that he sets off, the latest flaming pile of poo that he goes out and stomps on. That's all his campaign has done for 9 years, is trail around Donald Trump and trying to scoop up the mess. Now, where this campaign, the Harris campaign countering him, seems to they're not playing the game in the way that it has been played against Trump in the past. They're taking more of the laughing at them, calling them weirdos, mocking them, treating them with like a bunch of lunatics who have no business in public office, rather than equating them as a kind of a worthy rival, a worthy political party, or the head of a political movement that warrants equal or equality on the stage and should be taken seriously. That's the way that they're treating this differently. When Biden ran against Trump last time, circumstances were weird. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Trump was in the White House back in 2016. People didn't really take him seriously. They were outraged because it was so weird to see something like this. We've become numb to the daily deluge of dumb fuckery from Donald Trump, where we have to stop and say, was that today? Was that yesterday? Was that last week? Because there's such a constant torrent that you can't even keep track of it. That's kind of been his superpower, is nothing. There's so much that no one thing can stick other than the Trump fatigue that is starting to be evidence in the various polls. I don't think it's going to be too much longer before we can conclusively say that Trump's ability to hold on to that 46% of the electorate that he's had an iron grip on, not a majority, but a solid plurality, that is at risk here, because Trump has jumped the shark. He's like a TV show that's been on a few seasons too long. They've tried to introduce, the cute kid characters and some new plot twists, but it's just not working.
Well, yeah, and credit to Kamala Harris's campaign for not playing the game that he wants them to play, but instead calling them out. And I think in doing it in a way that is undermining, it's like basically they're his kryptonite, because if you call it out directly as it is without trying to sugarcoat, because he's so used to Democrats playing that nice sugarcoating thing. And it's like, no, you've got this strong campaign that's offering the American people something. Like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are offering something, and it's not just policies. It's a new way of thinking about politics and engaging with our neighbors in a way that people are craving. Like, we're all craving that. And so that's what we saw at the DNC, like the energy around it and the diversity around it was something that is needed in America, because diversity is not going anywhere. I think that's the thing that the GOP has a hard time wrapping their head around, is like they just want to mass deportation, shipping people out of the country in an attempt to, you know, maintain this like white ethno state. Like, it's so bonkers and unrealistic that like sometimes I have to ask myself, I'm like, this is why I say, is there some sort of other plan? Because this just doesn't feel like a plan. And yes, they hate women, because we, you know, that lower third was up earlier. They hate women. Women are a huge part of the voting population. And even more so, the amount of registrations by women, by Black women in the last few weeks has shot up. It's far outpaced the registration of other groups, and Gen Z as well is registering in numbers we haven't seen before. And so this speaks, this is good. This is good stuff. And I'm really excited about it. I don't want to talk about this tweet truth Trump thing but I think it's important to talk about it, because it contrasts the choice between a disgusting, filthy pig who reposts something about, well, just put it up. You can see there at the bottom, y'all. Jeff, I'll let you read it.
Well, I mean, I think this is indicative. I mean, this is a campaign that if let's say they have a strategy. Their strategy is to hyper appeal to men who've never grown past the 8th or 9th grade in their emotional content, and they seem to be going out of their way to try to repel any woman who has stayed part of the center-right coalition and voted for Republicans in 2016 and 2020. They're trying to do their damned best to make sure that no woman votes for the Trump-Vance ticket or Republicans down ballot in 2024. There's just no other. There's no way to sugarcoat something like this, that the former president of the United States deems that this is worthy of pushing forward, putting out to his tens of viewers on True Social, but then the rest of the world who watches this on Facebook and Twitter and on cable news, it's unconscionable. And this is a place where we see an utter failure from the mainstream media, because every Republican candidate across the country running at every level should be asked every day whether or not they're going to repudiate this, disassociate themselves from this, or run with Trump in agreement with this. Yet they're not being asked that. We just have become so numb and tired of this, that the Republican candidates who let me tell you, if they had a problem with this, they would say something about it. They don't, because they're a bunch of chicken shits. They need Trump to get elected. And this is going to be why I think that as Harris continues to build momentum and builds a coalition, a majority coalition heading into November, that Republicans down ballot have to start getting worried about an existential level event happening here, that they're really looking at a wipeout on the ticket if things continue in the trajectory that they've been on since July 21st, when Joe Biden passed the torch to Kamala Harris. If you look back, I mean, however many days that's been over these last 5 or 6 weeks, she has won every single one of those days, every single one of those news cycles. Donald Trump has been knocked back on the defensive, knocked out of the headlines altogether, or has been under the gun from doing stupid shit, saying awful things, behaving awfully. If it continues much longer, I mean, we're heading into Labor Day weekend. Ballots are being printed in all of the states. Early voting and absentee voting starts within the next 2 weeks. This election, the cake is getting baked, and Donald Trump has got to change something. And I don't think he has the ability. Donald Trump doesn't have the ability to change. Otherwise, he would have done so at any point in time in the last 78 years. Certainly the last 9 years he's been dominating the political stage. He doesn't have have a second act. There is no pivot.
Yep.
There is no strategy. There is no rationale as to why he's doing this versus that. It's all his lizard brain id impulse acting, like if you can picture a crocodile or a T-Rex, that's Donald Trump. But he's toothless. And I think that's what's driving him particularly crazy about the Harris campaign. He's kind of like the abominable snowman in that Christmas, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Christmas special. When they pull out his teeth, he's big and scary until you kind of look at him and realize he can't bite you. He can't do anything. He's not so tough. Not at all.
And I don't know that the RFK Jr. brainworm endorsement or the Tulsi Gabbard endorsements are going to add any teeth to his bite. I definitely don't think so. And that's what's funny, because he used that to try to seize the energy from the DNC, and everybody just laughed at him. Like every move this man makes, people are just laughing at him. And it does feel like the strategy, if there is one, is go all in on hating women. And they're like testing those waters with that. Testing waters. Speaking of waters, Jesse Waters. I don't know if you guys heard that comment. When I saw it, I was like, let's roll that.
This is where the president has his most impact. You have a lot of room to maneuver there as commander-in-chief. We don't know who she is. We don't know what she believes. She's going to get paralyzed in the Situation Room while the generals have their way with her. Right now,
Jesse Waters.
Jesse, I don't like that.
Figuratively,
Take
again,
it back.
have their way with her. Control her. Not in a sexual way.
He knows exactly what he's doing. And everyone with a daughter, a wife, a woman in their life that they actually care about, hearing that, like, how do you hear that? Like, Jeff, because when I hear that, I'm like, this is what they want the millions of people who are tuning in to think about women.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how this strategy can win. There have been a variety of circumstances that have Trump won by the skin of his teeth back in 2016. And it's not like he is some massive vote getter. He's never gotten better than 46% of the vote in any election. Mitt Romney got a higher percentage of the vote than Donald Trump ever has when Romney lost to Barack Obama. And so when you look at what they've done and the fact that you've got all these demeaning comments about Harris, about women in general, sexualizing, objectifying Harris, and then you add in the very real and dangerous things that they're doing, whether it's around abortion or IVF or birth control or monitoring females' menstrual cycles. I mean, very things that 4 years ago, the Lincoln Project produced an ad that was, it was about a trooper pulling a mom and daughter over at the state line, questioning them about are you leaving the state for an abortion? At the time, it seemed a little too far-fetched, but since Roe was overturned, since the Dobbs decision, and since this has happened in real life, Lincoln Project and many others have said, no, this is a very real threat. And I think this is a good spot to look at that ad that we put out, because it's one of the most watched ads the Lincoln Project has ever produced.
Driver's license, registration.
Here you go, sir. How's your day going?
That's your daughter?
Sure is.
Abigail, right?
How do you know her?
Were you about 8 weeks pregnant? So you've been spotting recently. You've had any cramps or nausea?
That's personal.
You've been taking your prenatal vitamins?
Excuse me?
Are you ticketing me for something?
Where are you heading, Abigail?
To go see my older sister, Natalie.
Well, that's strange. 'Cause it says here that Natalie's at a concert in Dallas. And your navigation is set to a women's health clinic in one of those abortion states.
We have the right to travel.
Not anymore. Step out of the car.
Please, officer.
Both of you out now. You, sir, are under arrest for crossing state lines to obtain an abortion for a minor under your care. And you, young lady, well, you're under arrest for evading motherhood.
When I first saw this ad, I choked up. I actually cried because it is a reality that a lot of families, and I say families because it's not just young women, it's young women and their dads and their moms and perhaps their partners. This is something that people are facing right now. And the fact that it could then also be a nationwide issue had me so choked up, because a lot of times people think, oh, I'm in a blue state, I'm okay. Or I'm in a progressive city, I'm okay. And it doesn't work that way in Trump's vision of America. And what I think is so key about this ad is that it's a dad driving his daughter. And so because we often think of this as just a women's issue, I think for me, when I watch it, I go, I bet a lot of dads out there are going, oh, that could be me and my daughter one day.
Yeah, and we know from our research that we've done with our sister organization, the Lincoln Democracy Institute, that there are many, many center-right historic Republican voters, males, older millennials, Gen Xers like myself, who have daughters who were considered themselves pro-life before Roe was overturned in the Dobbs decision, before the reality of criminalizing conduct like we saw there in that ad, criminalizing the medical procedures, the people involved, the doctors, the nurses, the women, the women or girls, sisters, daughters, mothers, wives that are involved in this. That's why we call at Lincoln Project those voters, we call them Dobbs dads or Dobbs parents, those who've had their eyes open to the greater threat, the handmaid tale kind of slippery slope that we're now on. When Roe was in effect, no state had the ability to put that kind of border control on their citizens. Texas has since done so. Other states have passed some very extreme abortion measures that would criminalize that behavior. It's not just a national ban that we have to worry about. Donald Trump being president and appointing the Supreme Court that has led to the overturning of Roe is directly responsible for these kinds of state by state patchwork of very restrictive laws, very oppressive laws, very anti-woman laws that we can expect to see as part of a nationwide ban if Trump gets reelected. And we have to, the Harris campaign we talked about is right to mock Donald Trump. Donald Trump is an oaf who impulsive, can't plan what he's going to have for lunch, let alone have a 5-year plan on what he wants to do for abortion. But those people around him do. There's the Steve Bannons and the Stephen Millers and those nameless, faceless dozens that at the Heritage Project, that the Project 2025, they have a very clear plan and very clear vision for what they want to do, how it will be enacted, who's going to be implementing it within the levers of the federal government. And so I think we need to be afraid of what could come from a Trump presidency, but that doesn't prevent us from laughing at how freaking weird and how strange they are in the process. And so I would encourage Harris to walk that line between showing the kinds of future, the dystopian dark future that a Trump presidency would unleash on the country versus the optimistic, hopeful, working toward a more perfect union future that the Harris Walz tickets can bring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a future to head towards and a past to walk away from. And so that needs to be crystal clear. They are actually sitting down tonight for an interview. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are sitting down for an interview for the first time. And people are freaking out about it a little bit. It sounds like the press is like, oh, why does she have to sit down with her vice? Like, why does it have to be a man? Can't she just sit on her own? And it's like, come off it, people. Like, do you want to hear from them or not? They're the ticket. Do you want to hear from the ticket?
Yeah, and we look back and like the last 8 tickets on both parties have sat down for their first interview after the convention as a ticket. And Trump and Vance did that in July. It's normal for candidates to do that. But again, we have the very misogynistic, demeaning toward women mindset of the Republicans, who are trying to make what isn't an issue, trying to show that somehow Harris is less than or needs a man involved in order to be a legitimate contender for the presidency, to be the next commander-in-chief, when all she's doing is exactly what other candidates, including Donald Trump, has done all 3 times he's run.
See, I like that clarity, and it is exactly what I think we're going to get tonight. And I'm excited about that, because the opposite of clarity is what the GOP has been up to for the last week. And so as we sign off, Jeff, it's been amazing having you here to talk about all of the goings on. We're going to sign off with the last week in the Republican Party, as we always do. But everybody, remember to like our content, share it, subscribe. That way people can stay informed without being sad about it, because we do like to keep it energetic and engaging here in a way that you can help understand the things without being debilitated by the things. So we will be back next week. In the meantime, enjoy last week in the Republican Party.
A message from the 45th President of the United Ponds of America.
Let's make fishing great again, okay?
You calling wounded veterans that have been shot or wounded, suckers and losers.
Who would say it? Who would say it? Nobody would say it. A stupid person or a person that's mentally ill.
Trumpy Trout is an animatronic talking fish with a big personality.
I am the hugely bigliest fish in the pond. I still think of him as young. He's not that young.
Berkeley, the People's Republic of Berkeley. Berkeley.
My fins are big. I have the biggest fins.
Kat, what would you do if you were president? And I know that's a fantasy since you are a female.
Okay.
You know, I always look for good words. Highly sophisticated. I'm highly educated. I like sophisticated words.
Do you wish you never made those childless cat lady comments?
I think that it's much more important for me to just be a normal human being who sometimes says things that people disagree with. I have a lot of regrets, Kristen, but making a joke 3 years ago is not at the top 10 of the list.
I love his name, Hung Cow. I love that name. And that name alone should get you elected.
She's going to get paralyzed in the Situation Room while the generals have their way with her. Right now,
Jesse, Jesse, I don't like that.
Figuratively,
Take
again,
it back.
have their way with her, control her, not in a sexual way.
You know who likes the word democracy the most? Dictators.
By popular demand, I'm doing a new series of Trump digital trading cards. I watch their asses from the back.
This hand-painted bobblehead serves as a reminder of the bravery shown by Trump.
New book is coming out. It's called Save America. I think you're going to love it. These cards show me dancing and even me holding some bitcoins. Thank you. Well, that's all I could see is thousands of asses.